Welcome to the second part of the Sling framework presentation. After completing this part, you should be able to describe the purpose of Sling Post Servlet and how it works, work with Sling Resource Resolver, understand the concept of service users, and understand context-aware configurations. Sling Post Servlet is one of the key features of Sling. It handles all post operations to Sling instance by default. This servlet provides possibility to create, modify, copy, move, and delete to invoke the resources. It can be extended with additional post operations and post processor. The servlet can be called with a standard form submission as you can see in this example. This action property is a node path in the repository. This node will be modified during the Sling servlet post execution. This name property in a parameter contains a node property which will be modified, and value property defines a new value for the node's property. After this form submission, that is title, property will be set on a node that is content page. Sling Post Servlet is actively used in AEM. It allows you to create, update, delete nodes and properties, copy move nodes, etc. When you create a new servlet, if you just need to update something in the repository, you can use Sling Post Servlet to cover all those mentioned requirements. Now, let's take a look at how Sling Post Servlet is used in AEM. Okay, here is a page with the text component on it. Let's modify this component and see how Sling Post Servlet will handle post request. Now, let's go to the network tab in a browser console. So among other requests, you have also the post request here. Let's open it, and here is the response from a Sling servlet, that is the Sling Post Servlet. It says that content was modified under this path. So we can look at this parameters as well. Into this Sling Post Servlet, here is the modified text that has just entered and other parameters. If you go now to the content path that has modified, we see here old values. If you refresh it, we can see the updated text that we just set here. And also you see that last modified and modified by properties were updated as well. Now let's copy the path and open in a new tab with a JSON extension, this one. So we actually sent a GET request here, and it was handled by Sling default GET servlet. And also you see the content of this node. So here is the updated text among them. You can use the other extensions like XML. Let's do that. And this is to get front ends of the node, and this again handled by the default GET servlet. And here you can see the text value of the text property of this node. Here are main servlets of a Sling framework. Sling main servlet, which is entry point to handle a Sling request after authentication, and the default GET servlet, which we just saw. It provides a default renders for resources like HTML, TXT, JSON, and XML. Sling Post Servlet, that allows extensive content manipulation like create, update, delete, which is done through its REST API. And the next is default error handle servlet, which is registered at the end of the global search path. Now let's have a look about resource resolver. So resource resolver defines order of how scripts are searching for libs, apps, and other folders. So also it is used to determine rules for constructing URL. So you can use resource resolver to specify additional rules for URLs and paths, like making pages available at shortened URL instead of the long one. Also, it's possible to get resource using a completely different path, not matching a path to their repository node. To understand the correspondence between paths and resources in the repository, you can use them in a console for resource resolver, where you can insert the address in a field and see the real address in a repository or shortened address for this node. We already know about inheritance in Apache Sling using property called Sling resource supertype, but AEM also provides one more way to override, that is out of the box component, which usually stores under libs folder. For that, you just can copy the script which you want to override under the apps folder with the same structure. This way of overriding core components behavior is called overlay. To summarize, resource resolver is a gateway for resources. It abstracts the path resolution and access to the persistence layer. And resource resolver has two main methods. First one is resolve, which is central method for matching a path to a resource. And then next, map, inverse operation. You can get a resource resolver from Sling request as well. So you can see here it is. Also, you get a JCR session by adapting it from resource resolver. Getting an administrative resource resolver for an admin session, list principle of a least privilege and make too easy for developer not to plan for a proper structuring corresponding access control level for the content rely on. Sling offers a service user mapping service which allows you to configure a bundle to user mapping and to corresponding API methods. Sling repository, that is the login service, and the resource resolver factory get service resource resolver, which returns a session or resource resolver with the privilege of a configured users only. So what are the steps to configure? So there are some steps to follow that to configure and use service users are in the following. So first one is create a system user and get permissions. Second, add configurations for the service user mapper. And finally, you can use Sling repository dot login service and resource resolver factory dot get service resource resolver method. Context-aware configurations are configurations that are related to a content resource or a resource tree like a website. The application needs a different configuration for different sites or maybe regions. They are all different contexts. Some parameters may be shared, so inheritance for nested context, and for those global fallback values is supported as well. You have a full control which contents of trees are the context in your application. Using the context-aware configuration Java API, you can get matching configuration for each content resource without caring where it is stored or how the inheritance works. Thank you for your attention.